Welcome everyone to another APAC Developer Office Hours. I'm joined here today by Anirudh Dewani,
Hi guys.
who's here from Hyderabad, Tony Chan from Hong Kong,
Hi everyone.
and I am Ankur Kotwal from Sydney. So for those of you that haven't joined us before, Developer APAC Office Hours is all about you asking us questions live, and we try our best to give you responses to them. So these are developer questions focusing on developing on Android. So we have a Google moderator link, and you can post questions on there. Yeah, so you can feel free to do so. It's on the Google event, and we'll put the link again just as a reminder on the thread for the Hangout itself. So with that, let's go to the first question. Okay. So thanks for the answers. So I guess this person joined us last time. Sorry I couldn't join last time. My question is related to the secure element access and selection. In my case, my phone has two secure elements, and both are having the same base IDs. Which one will be selected over NFC? So typically I haven't seen too many devices with more than one NFC device, so it's pretty cool that you have a phone with two. I should probably clear up one thing. There's the secure element is something that we haven't got APIs for yet. It's a secure element because we want to make sure that it doesn't get abused and misused. So there aren't APIs for the secure element itself. But if you're asking about how to access the NFC adapter, distinguishing between those two NFC adapters, again, there's actually not a good API for that now. If you look at the NFC adapter class or the NFC manager class, you can say, give me the default device, but you can't actually say, give me a specific device. So right now, it's going to give you whichever one it considers to be the default. It also depends on what you're doing with NFC, because if you're integrating with sort of the Android Beam type technology, you can do that that's abstracted for you. So just override the right methods there and implement Beam support that way. So if you're doing really low-level NFC, then it's going to be different.
And just a quick note. I think we are jumping between your screen and the moderator screen constantly. So maybe we need to fix that because for the recording.
Sure. Thanks, Tony. Okay, next question. Low-level media. Will future versions support decoding, demuxing to byte arrays and encoding/muxing from byte arrays or bitmaps or sound samples, as opposed to the microphone and speaker? Anirudh, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so the one thing we would like to say is we don't really have media experts with us today. I know we had a session from North America about low-level media APIs, but we'll try our best to answer these. But just in case we cannot, we will forward it to our team in North America. So, will future versions support decoding, demuxing? So right now we have, with the new low-level media APIs, we have a way of providing a byte buffer to a decoder or an encoder and enqueue the buffer using a byte buffer, which you can create. So that's one way of doing it. Yeah, about future, I don't really know, and I guess we can't really tell you right now.
All right, thank you, Anirudh. So, again, another low-level media question. Can libstate classes be used in JNI code somehow? It says JNI versus Android source tree incompatibilities and stable native interfaces. I'm actually not an expert in the low-level media side of things, and I actually didn't understand what you mean by the second part of the question. In terms of lib stage fright, I'm not sure. What we'll do is, again, today basically, just so you know, that we have a lot of low-level media questions from Marcus in Europe, and unfortunately we don't have any low-level media experts on the Hangout today. So what we'll do is we'll forward it to the engineering team and ask the relevant developers, and we'll try and get responses to you in a future Hangout. So yeah, I don't know the answer to this particular question. How about you guys?
No.
Not for this one. Also, just a quick note about for people who want to look at the list of questions, that they can actually pin the screen for the moderator. So if you want to just go under the people tab, the session, you can just pin down the other the moderator screen if you want to look at the question. Just a small tip. I'll take the next question. So the next question is from Bala in Java. Android is now reach all people who use mobile phones. My question is, if it goes to an education purpose tablet, how can we protect them from high maturity content? How to block the porn sites and apps by default on the OS? So first of all, I think this one is not really a developer question, but we're going to answer this anyway. So one thing about maturity content is in Google Play, there is a content filter parents can enable. So you can set a setting to high maturity and then give it a pin. So for children, they can. So this way we can filter out all the maturity contents from Google Play Store. Another thing I want to point out is this is not really a specific problem on mobile. This is just in general a problem on even desktop environment. I guess like it's really also we also need to rely on parents and also teachers to help to fight this issue.
I'd like to add something to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I know some educational institutions that are using Google Apps accounts as their university accounts or domain accounts to deploy these devices provisioned with those accounts. So with Google Apps, you certainly have some filters relating to mature content. And so if you're provisioning the accounts for your students using Google Apps, you have a natural way of filtering that at the domain level or at the account level before Android. So you can define some policies there. The other one is, as Google Device Administrator, you also have some control over some policies over the device. If the account is attached to a domain, for example, you can say camera is not allowed or stuff like that. But yeah, those are some of the other options you can think of.
Yeah, and I'll just bring this back to developers and just say this is why it's really important when you publish an app on Google Play that you rate it accordingly. It's one, it's the right thing to do, but two, it's actually against our policy to rate something as being universally available when it should be targeted at a mature age group. So just keep that in mind, developers.
And one last thing I want to add is in Google Play we do have policy to for nudity kind of content is not allowed in Google Play at all. So but if anyone user or developer see these contents, please report those to us, and we will take the action to take those apps down.
All right, thanks everyone. So next question. I have several apps on Google Play, but when I search for my apps on through a Google search, I realize that other websites are also selling my apps on their sites. Is there a way to protect my apps from being sold on unauthorized sites? And the answer is yes. What you should be using is something that we have called License Verification Library. I've brought up the page here, which is the relevant section. But basically what you're doing is your app is making a call to Google Play to confirm whether the app has been purchased by that user or not. And it's particularly important that, I mean, here we're talking about the issue where it's been uploaded to other sites, but in general, to combat piracy, the LVL is certainly one way to do it. So I suggest you go through this application licensing section on the developer.android.com site. The other thing is, I mean, there's a couple of things to keep in mind here. One is that you want to use LVL to detect whether the app has been pirated or being badly sold. But it's important that you don't just totally destroy the user's experience of your app, because if they've installed your app and they're actually using it, then you can see this as an opportunity to try and convince them to purchase it at the right place. So link it to the Play Store. You may argue that it may or may not, you might not get too many people that will do this, that convert from being a pirate to being a legitimate paid user. But in a way, the way you should look at it is, even if you only convert a small percentage of them, those are a small percentage that you wouldn't have otherwise been paid by. So it's really important that you look at this, but make sure that you don't implement it in a way that degrades the experience for people that have already purchased it. So make sure you think about the offline scenario when somebody hops onto a plane and they're using your app. If the LVL check is not able to succeed at that point because the device is offline, don't block the user from using your app. So there is a fine balance, but the service helps you. And the last thing I really should add is that LVL is... sorry, I'm just going to mute on the Hangout. Yep. Sorry, Andrew. But LVL, basically, we provide it as an open source implementation. So it's a library. You can grab it. You can incorporate it into your app. You need to make sure that you modify that source code. Don't just implement it the way it is, because there are people that are writing automated tools to try and crack software. So if you implement that source code the same way that it is now, that license checking, people are going to defeat it. You need to come up with a unique implementation, and that's why it is open source. We've tried to be as transparent as possible there. Do you guys want to add anything, and Anirudh or Tony?
I think it's good.
I think it's good.
Does that, just one thing on that one, does that mean that then you have to include extra permissions for using the internet? So if you've got an app that would have maybe 1 or 2 permissions, you then have to add extra permissions to use the licensing verification?
I think that is true. So yes, you'd probably need internet permission for that, network permission, yeah. Okay, we have another low-level media question from Marcus. Is there or will there be any supported way to stream live video and audio? Anirudh?
I'm not sure if there are any high-level application APIs, but certainly possible. I mean, many apps do it. Many video conferencing apps are streaming videos and audio. So I don't know of any particular high-level API that we can just say a start stream or something like that. But it's definitely possible.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. Will the camera service unlock feature in future versions so a crashed app doesn't block the camera for every other app until the phone is rebooted? So I think Marcus is actually reporting an issue where if an app that's grabbed the camera service crashes, that it's locking out other apps from using the camera. I haven't heard of this particular issue, and so if it exists, we will certainly funnel it through to the engineering team. And it's something that we should also include in our compatibility testing suite to make sure that it's generally reliable everywhere. So thanks for that, Marcus. Andrew, by default, the Droid Sans font is used on earlier versions of Android. With the new Roboto font, is that only used on 4.x devices, or do you need to use the Holo theme? If Roboto is automatically used, is there a way to force Droid Sans? That's a very good question. Certainly when you use the Holo theme, it will use the Roboto font. I believe the Droid Sans font is still there to ensure backward compatibility. Anything else that Anirudh or Tony want to add to that?
So I guess if you want to use the Droid Sans font, probably this is something you need to override the theme, the Holo theme, right? Build on top of it.
Yeah, well, I'm not using the Holo theme. I just wanted to make sure that when and my app runs on all the different devices, it's going to use the same font across all of them.
Yeah, so my understanding is that we've still kept the Droid Sans font, and I think it might even have to do with which SDK version you're targeting.
Okay.
As to whether it picks it up or not. Certainly switching to the Holo theme will enable it.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Low-level media again. Is there a way to record multiple video streams seamlessly, in brackets, without the gap in between the end of one and the start of the next recording? Not to my knowledge. Anirudh?
No, I don't know the answer to this one.
Yeah. Sorry, we just we've obviously been bombarded with low-level media questions this week, and we're not experts at that low level, basically. Okay. There seems to be commentary. The media API seem to be developed for the sole use case of recording single short files to disk and playing it back. Were other use cases like live video conferencing on a camera smartphone or simple video editing even considered? So I don't have any insight into what's happened at the design side of things, but we've got a video editor on that ships with the recent devices, and I've certainly seen video editing software on Play. So there are people that are doing this with the high-level APIs that we already provide. Yeah, I'm sure there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
How do you detect if an audio codec is not supported? Well, for starters, we on the Android developer website, we actually have a list of supported media formats. And these ones are the ones that will be guaranteed to be supported across devices because it's part of the certification process for the platform itself. Now, obviously, with different versions of Android, the support has grown and grown. So what I'd suggest you do is look through this particular document, and then you can see which formats are officially supported versus which ones you might, which are definitely maybes, as I like to call them, because they could be value adds by the OEMs.
Yeah, I guess Marcus' question maybe also the other part of the question could be like, is there a way to detect the list of supported codecs dynamically based on the phone? In Jelly Bean, we have a new class introduced called Media Codec List. So there are calls in that class you can query the cell phone, like what kind of media codec is currently supported on that device. So, but unfortunately, it's only available in API level 16. But hopefully, in the that will be useful for future phones.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Tony. So I didn't see any more questions on the thread. Andrew, did you have any more that you hadn't put up on moderator yet?
No, I just had one question. How do I get hold of an Android T-shirt with Jelly Bean on the front?
Not sure yet. In the past, we've we have the Google Store, and we've had them. We've sold these T-shirts there in the past. So these are kind of hot off the press. So we thought we'd get them out for today. So
very nice.
We've also given some of those through communities through the GDGs and GTUCs. So yeah, just bug Ankur on your side, and he might just send you a box.
I'll catch him at the next GDG then. GDT.
Yeah. All right. Well, that concludes the Q&A part of the show for this week. But we wanted to just cover a few announcements that we've had. So the first one I'd like to talk about is actually about the show itself. There are some changes afoot, and we're going to be changing the way we do this show next week onwards. So I don't want to go into the details, but stay tuned. We're hoping that these will be that these changes are an improvement. We've been listening to all the feedback that we've been getting, and we've been trying to implement as much of it as possible. All right. The other things that I wanted to mention are relating to some news that we've had during the week. So firstly, we have an update for the Android SDK tools. This is mainly just a minor bug fix, but on top of that, we've updated the Android support library. So we have a new notification builder API to try and sort of add some backward compatibility for some of the cool new notifications that we introduced in Jelly Bean. So worth your while to go and update through the SDK manager. Just keep in mind that there was a bug that was there in the SDK manager where the update may not show up. So as the post says, just you might need to go into packages and then hit the reload option to refresh the SDK manager cache so that the update shows up. Next thing, one of my favorite websites is the Android design website. So that's at developer.android.com/design. It'll add the index.html part for you. You don't need to put that in yourself. But this has been a great website that we introduced, I think, around December 2011, January this year. And basically, it covers all of the great design guidelines that we follow when developing our own Android apps. So we've had some new updates to this site that we put live this week. So it's certainly worth your while going and checking those out. So things like how to confirm and acknowledge input from the user, and it goes through all of this in some great detail. And it'll help you add that level of polish. When are you asking too many questions? When are you asking the right questions? As you all will know, you don't want to approach mobile development with a very desktop-centric mindset. So this particular section is really great for just explaining how it should work. So the same thing when it comes to selection, and the selection side is actually just talking about how we've transitioned to using the contextual action bar now instead of having a pop-up for menus. There's now a new section on widgets, and including the sort of the updated widgets that we have, like for the gallery, for example, and the resizing and so on and so forth. So it's really interesting. As you all will know, widgets add a great user experience. It's a way to, if you think about it from a developer's standpoint, if a user is putting your widget on their home screen, you have an opportunity to draw users into your content. This is dynamic content that you are updating, and it is so much more powerful than just having your app icon on their home screen, because you can change the content. You can, alert users to changes that will, again, you're given the opportunity to invite them in. So widgets are really important, and in the future we'd love to talk to you about how to make it well known to your users that you have a widget. How do you help them discover that? That's certainly a topic we would like to discuss in the future. So that's widgets. Notifications. Obviously, there was tons of information on notifications before, but in Jelly Bean we added rich notifications. So with these rich notifications, you can expand them and have all sorts of beautiful images. And so again, the design site is going through and describing what that experience should be like. The design site is literally for designers, so it's not showing you code, but all you have to do is flick from the design section to the develop section to jump to the relevant code pieces. And finally, settings. This is actually a section I think we introduced a little while ago, but it's still fairly new. And it just talks about what things should be settings. When is it right to offer a setting for a particular option. And finally, I'm going to close off with the section that we introduced called videos. So at Google I/O this year, there was a whole range of videos on the design process when it comes to designing an Android app. So we've basically collated and grouped these Android design videos on one convenient page so you can watch them all in one go. So for budding designers or Android designers, these videos are really, really, really useful. Some great tips there. So that's pretty much it from what's new with Android this week. What about Tony and Anirudh? Anything else?
Nothing much. So.
All right. Well, if that's it, then thank you very much for tuning in this week, and we'll catch you next week with some big changes. All right.
Cool.
Thanks,
Cheers,
everyone.
guys.
All right. Thanks.
Have a nice one.